Hi guys, Shauna Hall here for this week's discussion thread about women of the Revolutionary Era. This assignment was to analyze the stories and historical location of Deborah Sampson with regards to her contribution to the American Revolution and the narratives we remember. So some of those essential questions that came out of the article by Leah Milio will be analyzed and answered by the end of my video. So some of the background information, Deborah Sampson, born December 17th, 1760 in Plimpton, Massachusetts. She was born into a poor family. A father abandoned the entire family. So all the kids were sent to live with different relatives in a different town, but they were all still within Massachusetts, just different towns. She became a servant girl to help receive just the basic necessities of survival of food, clothing, and shelter. She has no formal education, but she did teach herself how to read and write. When Sampson was 21 years old, she disguised herself as a man and joined the Continental Army. She served for over a year in the military without being detected of her real identity. She had to be treated for a fever, which the attending physician then found out her secret. Sampson was honorably discharged in October 25th, 1783. When she returned back to Massachusetts, she married Benjamin Gannett. So She Bled in Secret was a book, or not a book, a review of Deborah Sampson and Herman Mann and the Female Review. So Herman Mann, gentleman, fought in the American Revolution, but that's not what the book was about. Herman Mann actually found women to be a huge contribution to the community. And when he found out about the story of Deborah Sampson, he wanted to help and write the biography. So he wrote a book, The Female Review, in 1797 about the life of Deborah Sampson. And it's revered as the most frequently tapped primary source for popular and scholarly accounts of Sampson's career in the Army. He uses Sampson's upbringing as a strength. Even for those who lack access to formal, pure education in this country, a free press allows all citizens responsibility to teach themselves. So he ties in her ability to teach herself and the importance of free press. She Bled in Secret. Now, I thought the title had to deal with having to hide her menstrual cycle, but I was wrong. Sampson was shot in the groin area and was afraid to seek medical attention as the doctors would figure out her true identity. She actually removed the bullet herself and treated her own wound for it. Mann's heroine, bleeding in secret, is forced heroically to repress her pain and rejoins her regiment before she even had time to heal. So I thought that was interesting. So Anne Lombard actually writes a review. Both of these articles are reviews of people that wrote about Sampson. So Anne Lombard is writing a critique about Alfred E. Young's Masquerade, The Life and Times of Deborah Sampson, Continental Soldier. Young is more concerned that Herman Mann is not telling the full story of Deborah Sampson. And Gannett is her married name. Mann does not stick to strict data or factual accounts, but instead putting his own voice in her biography. However, Young does agree to the information about her upbringing, but disagrees with Sampson's experiences and feelings during the war. Some of the questions brought up by Young was gender roles during that time, women's contribution to the war efforts. And again, Sampson defeated that gender role, gender stereotyping. Class system is another one. Can someone born into a poor class eventually move up with status? And again, Sampson did that when she married Gannett, who was middle class. And then cultural shifts, bringing about change. Women's roles all throughout U.S. history has changed the community, but it's just the matter of, did we actually have historians write these things down? So those were just a few things that Young brought up that Herman Mann did not. So, the essential questions that came out of this assignment: if the story of Deborah Sampson didn't exist, do you think another woman would have filled the shoes of a female revolutionary heroine? I do think so after my reading. You've got Molly Pitcher, who took her husband's place on the battlefield when he fell. You have Margaret Corbin. Now, one lady, Hannah Snell, she did not fight for the Patriots. She actually fought for the British. She joined the Navy incognito. And I have the link there, and I found her story to be very interesting from the British perspective. And that book was The Female Soldier by Robert Walker. How important was it to have a famous female from the American Revolution? It was extremely important, as the story of Samson actually is an overall success. She raised from poor class to middle. She was honorably discharged. She had a good military record. Now, some women whose gender was figured out in the very beginning was given the Whore's March out of camp. And that was really embarrassing, and it was just awful for any person to go through that. So I will say to have a successful story like Samson's helped the female role. Are there any writings that has challenged the validity of Samson's legend? And one of the things that I found interesting was the only one I could find was Alfred F. Young. He didn't really challenge Samson's validity herself, but more challenged her biography of Herman Mann. So, guys, I thoroughly